It's really humbling to consider that when we're in a leadership role, the influence we have upon others is profound for either good or bad. When we have humility in the way that we wield our authority as a leader, that has a profound blessing upon others. The effect of that is flourishing and freedom and joy for those under our authority. But when we lack humility, we can become coercive. We can create an environment that becomes abusive. I think a lot of people who abuse their authority, they don't start out seeking to harm anyone, but pride and small steps of pride that build up over the years can have such a painful impact upon others. Sometimes, in fact, I think I'd say usually beyond what we're even aware of as a leader. So we want to think about as leaders, we have to be so careful to wield our authority with humility. Two of the things that I've found helpful about this, one is being willing to apologize. And I see this with my kids. Regularly, I have to sometimes I'll pull our oldest 3 kids aside and just say, guys, I've been too grumpy today. I've not been patient. Will you forgive me? And what is so wonderful about that is how immediately they respond. And they're so willing to forgive me. They don't ever hold it over my head. They always say, oh, okay, Dad, no problem. And then they soften, and it affects the whole culture in our family. And I think when leaders are willing to apologize, I understand that this could be forced. We shouldn't just apologize just for an effect. But if it's truly from our heart, when we've made a mistake or something, and we're willing to apologize, it creates a freedom in the whole culture that we're trying to lead. Because then other people say, oh, I can apologize too. We don't have to be perfect. We can own it when we've made a mistake or mistreated someone or something like that. So willingness to apologize is so key. Another thing I've thought a great deal about is trusting others and relying on others. In a leadership position, it is so easy to feel threatened by the gifts of others. Common scenario, you're the senior pastor at a church, but someone else in the church is better than you are at one of the tasks of pastoral ministry in the church. Maybe it's hospital visits, maybe it's preaching, but the associate pastor, and you're the senior pastor and you're watching the congregation respond so warmly to this other pastor's gifts. Now, this is a great example of where any pastor, without humility, not walking with the gospel, can become abusive, because we can start to subtly or not so subtly feel threatened by this and then react to that and try to displace this other person. And that's a dark path. Once you start down that path, that is no fun for anyone, and you can really hurt people. What humility would call us towards is to trust others, rely on others, have an identity that is secure in the gospel. We're not easily jealous or envious of others. There are times where we may have a reason not to trust someone, so I want to acknowledge a little bit of complexity to this. But in general, for the default posture of our hearts to be trusting of others, not to hoard power, not to feel threatened, but just to have an open heart. If someone hasn't given us a reason not to trust them, open your heart to them. That person who's better than us, just trust that they're not going to turn on you. The people in the congregation are not going to respond or revolt in some way, and step into the vulnerability as a leader of trusting others, allowing others to shine. Make it your personal ambition to build up those around you and let them flourish in their gifts. Get to a point where you would say, I want others to flourish far more than I do. I want others to outpace me, and not be threatened by that. I think when a leader is willing to embrace that, or even just in the gospel step towards that as much as they can, it creates an environment of flourishing, freedom, and joy for everyone under their authority.